So we're back on the platform of FIVAPE Expo, third workshop this morning, which will concentrate on France. We have Mickael, the president of FIVAPE. We're going to talk about the evolutions in the French markets. We will probably not be able to see each and every detail in the French market, but we'll give you the occasion to talk with the audience as well. First of all, let's check out this video, and it already started apparently, and then afterwards your presentation. So 7 million vapors in 2020. Do you think it is possible? Now we're at about 2 million vapors. And in the press, we recently read that there's a stagnation, a stabilization of the French market of the first semester of this year. And of course, there were the OFTT figures as well. And they stated that there's about 1.5 to 1.9 million vapors. Do you think the market is stabilizing because there's not enough new e-cigarette shops, or what is happening? What we've seen was an incredible explosion between 2012 and 2013 of e-cigarettes. And at the end of 2013 and beginning of 2014, an enormous explosion as well, and about 2 million vapors in France. But the problem was that no new consumers were not able to convince any new consumers afterwards, or very few. And the thing we can ask ourselves is, okay, have we forgotten the willingness of people wanting to smoke electronic cigarettes and to keep them away from the cigarettes and to bring them better health? Do you have the feeling that today that the consumers that are vaping are not as easily seduced by the advantages of the products as compared to tobacco products? And some people might have had this information that tobacco is as dangerous as the electronic cigarettes, or vice versa. Do you have the feeling that the new vapors are difficult, hard to convince on the advantages of the product? Yes, I do think so, because it is a passionate market. And it is a product which is not imposed by anyone. So it's voluntary, of course, which is logical. But some consumers want very easy things, and they come to e-cigarette shops, and they're completely lost in the woods because they have no idea what kind of products are available in the market. So what we need is a very simple product. Apart from the French markets, or the cigalikes are very rare on the French market. Only a small percentage are rechargeable. And these new vapors, well, maybe they're not really willing to use the products. Could we think of a situation where this e-cig would increase a little bit? So the actual exercise to attain these consumers will be to simplify the e-liquids and the different tools used. And you will have to find a good mixture. Maybe that the cig-alike will have its place in the markets in the future, but of course it will have to be intelligently. People will have to feel that they want to use electronic cigarettes instead of tobacco. Today, there's about 60% of e-liquids that are sold in France and produced also in France. Maybe that can reassure the consumers of the quality in France. Well, about 3.54 million, more or less, flasks are produced. So 60% is indeed produced in France. But the French culture is very well installed here. We're talking about terms as vapology, vaping culture, etc. So the more it is made in France, the more it will attain consumers in France. And of course, there's the health and security standards as well. That's something we indeed talked about a lot in the past few days. And there's a lot of challenges. You talked about vapology, and for vapology, you need, of course, experts in vapology. How do you see the expertise for the future? I think there's training, maybe a role for training, and we need to have the correct know-how and the competences and pass this on to the consumers. And what we also need is standardization concerning the products, and also the instructions of use need to be put onto the flasks and the devices. And the different shops who sell or that sell the products will need to have this information and pass it on to their clients as well. So people need to be sensibilized, needs to be trained. And that's the actual service you can deliver to a customer when you're an e-shop. What we also saw in March 2014 was the fact that e-cigarettes, the sales of e-cigarettes were prohibited to minors. What are the things you can tell about this? Well, for example, it's very important to talk about the e-liquids and to make sure that children cannot easily open the bottles and get poisoned by nicotine, for example. There's a number of security norms you have to explain to your customers because the heat that is produced by the devices is rather big. So it's very important to explain this to the customer and to avoid accidents in the future as well. So this is work we need to do. And we have to guarantee the security of the devices to our customers. There was a workshop coming from the forum, and some people ask themselves, what do we do with the flasks? Do we just throw them away? What about the environment? Are there any things being undertaken concerning the environment linked to vaping? Well, indeed, we're obliged to recuperate every flask that is thrown away. Of course, it depends on the consumer. If he just throws his flask away, well, that's his choice, of course. But we need to sensibilize the client to give back his flask, and then we can maybe give him a little present as a favor. And the producers themselves will need to be implied in this process as well. They will need to recycle their flasks for them it's also really interesting. And it should be an obligation, really. For the environment, it is very important. So things are being undertaken now. And at the beginning of the year, during the first FIVAPE exposition fair, there was somebody talking about, indeed, this theme environment. You were talking about boxes as well, FEI. There's a lot of professionals from specialized boutiques that participated to the operation. And professionals want to know what's going to happen concerning the mobilization of the vapors, of course. And there's a number of questions on the internet as well about this. Some people were hard to convince to sign the survey because they didn't want to show their identity. How did you feel this operation? What do you think about this operation, and how can we secure the future for the consumers on a European level? Well, I see two profiles. People who gave their identity cards and everything went well, but also I saw professionals who didn't want any communication, who didn't want to communicate because they didn't want to diabolize the electronic cigarette. So you have to sign this survey because, well, it's a very delicate subject. Today we need to continue on signing this survey to get it to the European level. And the customers, of course, can ask themselves questions about the future of the product. How can you give information to the consumers concerning the directive, concerning the instructions of use, etc.? What is the position of the professionals concerning their customers? Because from one day to the other, the situation could completely change by the directive. Well, of course, we need to continue and innovate. We have to work on standardization, certification, services, and that is just why the directive on a European level will be transposed at a given time on the national level, and we just have a small margin. So taxes. There's a debate going on. FIVAPE has explained that VAP will reduce the social cost, due to the fact that less people are smoking regular cigarettes. So this enriches the society. Do you have any information on that, or the taxes that could be imposed on electronic cigarettes in the future? What are the forecasts for the next few weeks? Well, there's no extra taxes for electronic cigarettes for the moment. Maybe next, or maybe in the next few years. But today, we should not be taxed. The tax should be justified if there's one. If there were a tax tomorrow, then it needs to be a tax that goes back into the vaping community, not disappear just into the pockets of the government. Regulatory speaking, it's difficult to regulate the sales of cigarettes on the internet. Nowadays, about 9 to 10% of the products are sold on the internet. Well, no, 56% of the sales are done in physical shops, and the rest is done on the internet, websites, for example. And this is because service is different. And you're talking about websites, French websites, absolutely. I'm talking about the French market, yes, because we as French vapors, we can also go to other websites, United States, China, for example. Does this have to be taken into consideration as well? Well, Today, most sales within France are coming from French websites. So the people go to French websites in France. Thank you for having replied to our questions, and afterwards we will talk about the subjects a bit more. Thank you.